Morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Thursday, January the 29th. We had a bunch of big tech reporting in the after hours yesterday. Meta is the one that is moving towards the upside. We have Microsoft moving towards the downside. Tesla pretty flat here. So there's a lot of things to go over. A lot of after hours and pre-market moves here in the markets this week, which has made it a little bit more difficult to trade intraday. But we'll kind of talk about that here. Of course, we had FOMC yesterday as well. We weren't expecting a rate cut, so not as much volatility. And then, of course, we had Jerome Powell speaking at 2:30 for some more guidance. But the main thing here was, of course, FOMC plus the earnings that we had. And, of course, we'll talk about it this morning. Before we do that, good morning. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Cody B. Roots, TW. Good morning, Under, KO, Deuce, I Am, Robert, Ryan, Martin, 50, Smarter, Salaman. Good morning, Friday, Sinna, Lauren, Lamit, Stacy, Stefan, Nontali, Frank. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's first bring up the economic calendar. We still have a couple more earnings tonight as well, so that's something to keep in mind. We do have Apple, but let's pull up the economic calendar here. And let's go over exactly what we have coming into today. So as you can see right here, we have unemployment claims at 8:30. So we'll see how that impacts the market. And then we have Trump speaking later today. And then on Friday, we have core PPI, which is going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we have a decent amount of more red folder news this week, especially core PPI tomorrow at 8:30. Normally, that is on a Thursday, but this week it is on a Friday. Plus, we still have Apple and SNDK, of course, for earnings. Let me pull this up here. So as you can see, let me pull up the earnings calendar, at least for this week. So as you can see right here for the earnings, we had Microsoft reporting in the after hours yesterday. We had Meta. We also had Tesla. So we'll go over these ones, of course. And then as you can see, we have Apple today. And then we also have SanDisk as well, which is fairly big. Some other ones, we have MasterCard, and then we have SoFi on Friday, American Express. So we have a couple other big ones to keep in mind. If you are trading any of these or if you're invested in any of these, that's something to keep in mind. So let's go on to the charts to see exactly what we're looking for coming into today. Let's go on to the ES. So first things first, as you can see here for the ES, the key levels that we have marked out, really coming into today, let's actually first go on to the higher time frames. So the higher time frames here on the SPY and Qs. Right, every single dip so far just being bought up towards the upside. Now we're back at this all-time highs level. Very similar thing to the QQQ. We end up having that nice push finally towards our all-time highs. And now you can see moving forward, the key level here is, of course, going to be that all-time highs if you do want to see continuation. So let's go back onto the lower time frames here. As for the ES, the key levels that we have marked out coming into today is going to be that all-time highs that we have marked out, which is also the high for this week. Other key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 6992, and then we also have marked out here, which is your 7016, which is in this case your Tuesday's highs. So coming into today here, we have multiple touches around these general areas. My key level here is just going to be your Tuesday's highs from earlier this week. What I like to see is really the reaction that we have off this level. Yesterday, tried breaking above it. Later into the session was not able to get above, and then we just end up having that push down in towards our key level of support. Now we're back above this level. So moving forward here today, what we like to see for the ES in specific is maintain above your 7018. That's going to be the key level that we have here on the ES. If we can maintain above, we could be looking for long positions above this level for a pushback towards the upside. Another possible scenario here now is going to be longs above our pre-market highs for a pushback up and towards our 7040 here as well. So a couple scenarios for the ES for upside today. Downside, is technically in play. We do have a little bit of a gap up here. It would be the break back underneath, and you'd have to see some sellers step in off this 7018 for potential pushback down in towards that previous day close that we have formed. So coming into today here for the ES, we'll kind of talk about the NQ and the Qs here in a second and what it looks like here on the higher time frames. But this is what we have for the ES coming into market open. If you go onto the SPY chart, you can see we actually are fairly bullish here on the SPY, just because the higher time frames is at all-time highs. Plus, if you look at this daily chart here as well, right, a little bit of reaction after getting above our all-time highs, but very much still bullish, right? Higher lows are intact. We're at all-time highs. We can expect the markets to continue higher. So for the SPY chart, let's go back onto the 15-minute time frame. The key levels that we have marked out coming into today is going to be that Tuesday's highs that we mentioned, 696 here for the SPY. As long as you maintain above that 696, I'm going to be more long biased in the overall markets, looking for that continued push back towards the highs. Another possible scenario, of course, is going to be now above your pre-market highs for that push up and towards our all-time highs here as well. So keep an eye out on this coming to market open here on SPY. It's going to be longs above our 696 coming into market open. That's going to be the key levels that we have marked out. The only way I'm going to be leaning a little bit more towards the downside here on SPY is now if we can get underneath our 696. Underneath our 696, I'm going to be leaning a little bit more towards the downside for a potential move back down in towards that 694. But until then, as I mentioned, higher time frame is very much bullish. Right, intraday now, getting above key levels, which is your Tuesday's highs. We're going to lean a little bit more towards the upside here in the overall market. So that's what we have for the SPY coming to market open. Right, next key levels, of course, is going to be your previous day highs and then your all-time highs in the pre-market. So this is what we have for the SPY coming into today. Now let's go on to the ES. Sorry, let's go into the NQ. So for the NQ, really solid push towards the upside here as well. The key levels that we have marked out is going to be the exact same thing. We have our Tuesday's highs marked out, and now we have our higher time frame key point of interest, which is our weekly highs. So for the NQ coming to market open, you can see yesterday buyers really filled the gap towards the downside, stepped in off our previous day highs during FOMC. You had a couple big wicks here as well, and then really solid bounce once again off of your Tuesday's highs, which is that 26,100. So coming into market open here for the NQ, all you're going to have marked out is going to be that Tuesday's highs, and then you're going to also have marked out your high for this week, which is your 26,340. If you do want to see some upside, there's a couple scenarios for the NQ coming into market open. Key level that we have, potential bounce play off that Tuesday's highs for that continuation back towards the upside. Another possible few scenarios here for the NQ, right? Opening range candle. We're going to be in between its previous day's range, so I'd be a little bit more cautious on this scenario. But if we can get a really strong push right off the bat, potential trade up in towards our previous day highs, or now it's going to be, of course, above our previous day highs, we can see a push up in towards our last week's highs and above. So keep this in mind for the NQ coming into market open here. Now let's go on to the QQQ. Yeah, gold's been going absolutely crazy. We'll kind of talk about gold and silver here in a second. As I mentioned, don't try and find a top on gold or silver. I know it is very overextended, but as I talked about earlier, right, look for major dips to go long if you're going to trade this short term. This one been absolutely crazy. Above 5,000 key seg, now it's already at 5,500. But we'll talk about that here in a second. As for the QQQ, let's go into the daily chart here. So as you can see, the QQQ really solid push towards the upside. Once we broke above this 628, the next level here that we had was our all-time highs. We ended up gapping up in towards our all-time highs, which made it a little bit more trickier of a session yesterday pre-FOMC. But as you can see, we ended up coming back down, filling the gap. So we did a couple things. Kind of rejected off our all-time highs, and then we end up filling this gap all the way back towards the downside. And now we're seeing some buyers step in right off our previous day highs, or in this case, now it's going to be that Tuesday's highs. So as you can see, multiple touches here in the after hours, of course, with earnings, another touch here once again. Now I can see the QQQ is above our Tuesday's highs, but underneath that 635.50. So we have a decent amount of volatility here with earnings, with FOMC. So as you can see, as I mentioned, a decent amount of volatility in the after hours. What we like to see coming into market open here is the reaction that we have off our previous day lows. And the next key level here is going to be that 635.50. So coming into today here, what we're going to be looking for is a potential bounce play off our 632 for this continued pushback towards the upside. Another possible long scenario now is going to be the reclaim back above our 635.50 for this continuation higher. Can we be trading in between its previous day's range? We can. It might be a little bit more difficult kind of in trading in between here. So I'll be a little bit more cautious, at least right off the bat. And of course, you probably just want to be a little bit more patient today. With the Qs inside of this range, we are bullish here on the higher time frames and focus on a couple more individual tickers that are a little bit more clear. So we just want to wait for the market to digest FOMC yesterday, wait for it to digest some of its earnings that we had after close. So for the Qs, at least right off the bat, be a little bit more patient, and then we'll wait for some clear opportunities on some of these tech names, since now most of them had earnings and some of them are shaping up nicely here on the higher time frames. So this is what we have for the QQQ coming into market open. So these are the long scenarios. The short scenarios are really the pop and fade off for 635, or now it would have to be shorts underneath that 632. But as I mentioned, I'm leaning more towards the upside, but of course, we're still going to be open to playing the downside if the opportunities present themselves. Okay, now let's go on to some of the names that we have. Let's first talk about the SMH, since this is very key for the overall markets. As you guys know, this is the semiconductor ETF. So all the semiconductors have been pushing up very nicely. As you can see, higher lows are being built. We're getting that nice push towards the upside here as well. So key levels coming into today for the SMH that we have marked out is going to be that 421. Other key levels I have marked out here is going to be that 418, which basically is your previous day highs. So coming into market open, what we're going to have marked out is going to be that 418.50 previous day highs. If you do want to see any sort of continuation, reclaim above, we could be looking for this pushback towards the upside. Scenario number one. Another possible scenario, really immediate retest right off the bat for this continued pushback up and towards our pre-market highs and above. So these are the scenarios that we have for the SMH coming to market open. Both of them are going to be the reclaim back above that previous day highs here on the SMH. Another key level that we have is going to be that 418 still. If we can look for potential fades off this level, this one is at all-time highs, so I'll be a little bit more cautious, but it could very much well reject and come back down in towards that previous day close and potentially a couple key levels that we do have here on the SMH. So this is what we have for the semiconductors coming into market open. Semis are still holding up very nicely, so we'll kind of talk about that here. MU still at all-time highs, holding up. A bunch of these names are holding up still. So now with that being said, we will head on to some tech names. There is a bunch of things to go over. Of course, with a bunch of these names having earnings, Apple has earnings in the after hours here now. So if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. Yeah, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, of course, that is going to be in the description here below as well. First things first, let's talk about Tesla. So Tesla had some earnings yesterday, pretty flat, only up about 1.7%. So these contracts right at market open are just going to get IV crushed. We're still inside of this range that we have created here as well. So really not too much to talk about. As you can see, There's kind of consolidation in between this overall range. So until we can break outside this range, which is going to be your range high 455, along with our range low 430, I would be more hands off here on Tesla, especially with earnings today, right in between the middle of the range. I would just be a lot more cautious. So we haven't looked at trade Tesla in a very long time. We maybe only traded Tesla one or two times in the past month or so, just because we've been ranging. It's been a little bit more difficult to trade. So for Tesla, at least coming into today, keep an eye out on your 438 previous day highs. We have your, of course, previous day lows, and then we have a couple touches here in the after hours and earnings here as well. So for Tesla, key level that we have marked out, 438. I don't really want to map out too many opportunities or a couple scenarios here on Tesla, just because it's going to be very hard to trade. Since we are in the range, there's going to be a decent amount of volatility, but there's going to be no clear direction. But if you are looking for Tesla, just keep an eye out now off your previous day highs, 438. So this is what we have on Tesla. Now let's go on to Nvidia. So Nvidia, I still like this one here on the higher time frames. As you can see, the key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 193. So this is our range high. If you just draw at this level, you can see touch here, multiple touches here on Nvidia. Now what we're going to be waiting for is the break above our 193. We could be looking for continuation towards the upside. So until then, we're going to be a little bit more patient. We could be looking for this potential kind of cup and handle here as well for continuation higher. So Nvidia is going to be one of my main watches moving forward here on the higher time frames. But key level really is going to be that break above this 193. So moving forward, let's keep an eye out on this one. We'll have some alerts set. Key level is now your Tuesday's highs, which is your 189.80. And then we also have your 192.60 here on the higher time frame. So coming into market open, we actually also have another key level 191.40s. What we like to see is the bounce play off our Tuesday's highs for this continuation towards the upside. Low risk, another possible scenario, reclaim back above that 191.60s, or now it's going to be, of course, the break above that 192.60s for this continuation higher. So this is what we have for Tesla coming into today. Sorry, Nvidia coming into today. We'll still keep an eye out on this one moving forward. As for AMD here now just kind of consolidating after hitting our all-time highs. So you can see once price hits your all-time highs, that's a main objective, right? People are going to be looking to sell, and now you can see we're just kind of consolidating here. So until AMD can break back above this 256, we're going to be a little bit more patient. But key levels, you just want to have marked out 256 along with our 250. Break above 256, we can see continuation. Until then, just be a little bit more cautious. You can see a couple sellers stepping in here. So the break above that is going to be key. As for some other scenarios, right, just keep an eye out on AMD. Either you're looking for the break above 256, which is the best one. Another possible scenario is going to be the bounce play off our 250 for this continuation back towards the upside. As for shorts, potential pop and fade, or now it's going to be underneath that 250 for this continuation towards the downside. Anything in between here is going to be a little bit more difficult. So we're going to be waiting for trading opportunities at the top and the bottom of the ranges. Now let's go on to Apple. So Apple does have earnings in the after hours. So we'll just see what happens with Apple coming into today. We'll take a look at this a little bit more tomorrow, of course. But for Apple, just kind of ranging in between this consolidation. It has earnings tonight. So we'll just be a little bit more patient, see what happens. Based off the daily chart, right? Kind of nice key bounce off support. There's room back towards the upside. There's also room back towards the downside. So we'll keep an eye out on earnings tonight here for Apple, at least for the key levels that we have marked out. Coming into today, we're going to mark out that 257. And then we also have this week's highs marked out, 262 here on the higher time frames. All right, let's talk about Google. So Google had some news in the after hours, and this one pushed back up and towards our all-time high. So we kind of talked about Google. Looks good for a move back up and towards our all-time highs, our 241. And we end up having some news, pop this back towards the upside. Now the key levels that we have for Google is going to be number one, all the way back down in towards that previous day close, And now we can also mark out our previous all-time highs, which is at 241. So for Google, as long as you can maintain above our 241, we could be looking for this continuation back towards the upside. Another possible scenario here now, of course, is going to be above our so this is our after hours highs for this continuation higher here as well. So a couple scenarios that we have on Google towards the upside. We could see a potential kind of rejection here off our all-time high. So if we do get underneath that 241, be cautious. There is a potential kind of reversal back down in towards that into that 336. So this is what we have for Google. Now let's go on to Meta. Let's go back onto the daily chart. So Meta, we kind of talked about this one. Super strong buyers kind of right off our key 600 level. We have this daily gap back towards the upside. So we originally gapped down for earnings. This was back in November towards the downside. And now we're actually gapping back up and we're filling this gap back towards the upside. So for Meta moving forward, the key levels that I have marked out is really this full gap fill that we have created, 740 here on the higher time frames, and we have our 680. So if we go back onto the lower time frames, you can see Meta, strong earnings, push this towards the upside. Now we ended up filling that gap fully in the after hours. Moving forward here for Meta, the key levels that we're going to have to mark out is number one, that 742, that full gap fill here on the daily time frame. And then we're going to have to mark out a couple pre-market levels. I'm personally going to mark out this key level currently. We could always adjust it later. I'm just going to mark out kind of this pre-market low here, which is your 715. So for Meta, if you do want to see some upside today, you're going to have to wait for what's called an IV flush. So any sort of pullback within the first one or two candles, you can be looking for this continuation higher. So you could be looking for the first dip, you could be looking for the reclaim. What you don't want to be doing if price launches right off the bat, you don't want to be chasing price just because the IV is going to be super elevated. To trade any of these earnings, you need an IV flush. So you need any sort of drop. So if earnings are bullish, you need a dip and rip. So you need a flush right off the bat for this continuation higher. If it's downside, you need a pop and drop, or you need an IV flush towards the downside. So this is what we have for Meta coming into market open. Keep an eye out on your 715 coming into today. As for Amazon, this one, super solid push towards the upside, ultimately kind of rejected off key pivot points on Amazon, and now we're back all the way down in towards that 240. So not too much to talk about. Some buyers are kind of stepping in here off that 240. This is going to be our bounce for a potential mean reversion back towards the highs. Longs, in my opinion, are now going to be the best back above this 245 here on Amazon. So that's going to be the key level that we have marked out. And then, of course, on Microsoft, we had some earnings on this one here as well, dropping towards the downside. The key levels that we have marked out. Let's go back onto the daily time frame here. As you can see for Microsoft, we end up having a nice bottom here coming into earnings, but ultimately earnings are now dropping this all the way back towards the downside. So for Microsoft moving forward, what are the key levels that we have marked out? The key levels are just going to be our last week's lows. You can see really nice push lower. We're finding a little bit of support here, kind of off this 440. Now for Microsoft moving forward, the key levels that we're going to have marked out, 456. You can see multiple touches here, and of course our 440 here on the higher time frames. So key levels that we like to see is, of course, a pop and fade if we do want to trade this all the way back towards the downside. So kind of similar thing. You don't really want to chase price if it drops right off the bat. If you're going to look to short this towards the downside, you need a pop and fade, and you need what's called an IV flush. So that's what we have for Microsoft. Keep an eye out on your 456. As for some other tickers that we have, Netflix just kind of consolidating after earnings, so really not doing too much, just in between this 88 along with this 83. And now let's go on to a couple other names that we have. MU still holding up very nicely, so we'll take a look at that here now. We also do have some unemployment here as well. We'll see how that affects the market. I'm not expecting too much, but let's wait for unemployment here as well. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well. I know that was a lot to kind of take in. We still have a couple more things to go over. since there's a lot of moves that happened in the after hours, of course, with earnings. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers now, you guys can drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. What's a good IV percentage? An IV percentage is all relative. Majority of the times, if it is above 100, the IV is going to be elevated. So you want to drop down towards normal levels, wherever the norm is. So normally, if you're trading Tesla, let's say it's around 60, 70%. 67 70% IV. Anything above 100 of course is going to be elevated. So it's mainly relative to the ticker that you normally trade. So you can look at the options chain, and based off the options chain, if you go a couple weeks out, that's going to be your normal IV. Is it extra risky to trade an expensive stock option like Meta if you have a small account? Yeah, if you have a small account, I would avoid trading tickers that are a little bit more expensive. They're not as small account friendly. Something like Tesla, SNDK, right? Meta is pretty expensive, right? Anything that's a little bit more expensive, you want to avoid. As for the unemployment claims, we just had them forecasted 206, actual 209, basically came in as expected. I don't really expect the market to move off this. Yeah, as you can see, market's basically neutral off that fact. So now let's go on to some of the other tickers that we have coming into today. So let's first talk about MU. MU, another one where we talk, right? Do not try and find a top on something like this, right? Is it overextended? Yes. But can it go higher? Yes, right? You just want to trade with the trend. Very similar to gold, silver, right? Do not try and time a top. Is it going to come down? Of course it's going to come down. But when you're trying time a top, it's very difficult to try and find a top, specifically the very high, right? You either want to wait for a clear market structure shift, or if you want to trade this towards upside, you want to wait for major dips to go long towards the highs, right? Every pullback so far has been bought up. So for MU coming into today, as you can see, every single dip being bought up in the markets. Key levels that we have marked out yesterday was at pre-market lows. We had this nice kind of reclaim back above for that continuation higher. Now the key levels that we have marked out is going to be that previous day highs. We can actually readjust this level. I kind of like your previous day highs. Also like your pre-market highs from yesterday here. So both these levels are fairly good on MU. As for today and moving forward, key levels, yeah, previous day highs, or sorry, this key level from yesterday, it's not quite your previous day highs. What we could be looking for here is the bounce off your 434 for continuation. Another possible scenario, bounce off our previous day highs for this pushback towards the upside. So there's a couple scenarios on MU coming into today. Only way your short bias, right? As I mentioned, do not try and time a top here on MU. If you try and shorted MU every single day for the past 2 months, you most likely would have lost money compared to every single time we've longed MU, right? We've made a lot of money, plus we've had a lot of continuation. So it's a lot easier if you look for major dips on MU. But the key levels here, 434. For shorts, only in play would be a quick aggressive short underneath this this 434 towards the downside. So this is what we have for MU coming into market open. TSM, this one slowly pushing back towards the downside. Higher time frame, still very much bullish. This one's not as much of a momentum ticker compared to something like MU or SNDK, but higher time frames, you just like to see maintain above key levels if you do want to see any sort of continuation back towards the upside. Key levels in this case, now that we have marked out, is just going to be that Tuesday's highs, which is that 341 that would have to see reclaim if you want to see a push higher. As for Intel, nice kind of strong bounce here off these lows. So Intel, we had some earnings, push this towards the downside. We kind of are now bouncing off key levels of support. So for Intel moving forward, the key levels that we have marked out is just going to be that 4750. So you can see nice break and retest yesterday. Now we're kind of basing above this 4750. What we like to see moving forward is really maintain above this level for continuation, right? We like to see buyers step in off that 4750 for continuation higher. another possible scenario here now, reclaim back above our previous day close general area for this continuation higher. So this is what we have for Intel coming into market open here today. Shorts are in play underneath that 4750, so that is something to keep in mind. But Intel higher time frame still very much intact. We did have some earnings that pushed us towards the downside, but now with us reclaiming back above key levels, I'd like to see a really buyer step in here off this 4750. Let's go into a few other tickers here. CRWV kind of dropped yesterday. Key levels that we have marked out was that previous high that we created here on Tuesday. As for SNDK, let's kind of talk about SNDK coming into today. We do have earnings in the after hours. Another one where if you tried shorting SNDK, it's very difficult. There's only been a couple red days after having this really explosive move towards the upside. We do have earnings today, so that is something to keep in mind. The IV is going to be very, very elevated. So now the key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 516. And of course, we have marked out that Tuesday's highs here as well. So we're just going to be a little bit more patient. We'll see what shapes up here with SNDK earnings along with Apple. Key levels moving forward, of course, if you do want to see it maintain, is going to be above your 528 previous day highs for this continuation back towards the upside. Okay. Now let's go on to a couple other tickers here. Let's actually first talk about gold. I think this is very important. Most of you guys are probably looking at this here as well. Let's kind of talk about gold and silver. Let me grab some water here before I do that. What's that smoke behind you, Yellow? No, that's a humidifier. Let's go on to gold. The key levels, as you can see. So right now we are at all-time highs. So we're at all-time highs here on gold, silver, also at all-time highs here as well. Right, with the markets really extending towards the upside here, we have no levels to base it off of, right? We're just having essentially a really solid squeeze. You can see ever since we retested our key levels last week, we're having essentially a blow off the top type of move, right? This is the last, this is usually the last stage of a move is when we have essentially markets just moving up in a straight line. So as you can see here for gold, right, every single dip, we have not had a single down close candle. Every single dip so far just being bought up. Every single really key level that we have marked out here on gold has been bought up for a continuation high, right? Every single down close candle just moving higher. So for something like gold, as you can see, every single down close candle that we have marked out has been just moving higher. If we were to bar by bar this, or if we're to look at this on the daily time frame, right? Until we can break underneath its previous daily candle, something like here, back here, or something over here, we're gonna just have a really strong push towards the upside. So a great thing to keep in mind, or one of the easiest ways to determine the strength of a ticker is just to bar by bar something on the daily chart. So until we can break underneath its previous candle high, right, maintain a bullish stance here on gold and just look for major dips. As you can see, right, we had this solid push towards the upside. If you were to bar by bar it, whenever it closed below its previous candle, you can see the momentum started to slow down. Kind of similar thing here. Nice push higher. Once we broke underneath its previous candle, that's when momentum started to slow down. So in this next leg towards the upside, until we can break underneath its previous candle high, do not be overly aggressive towards the downside, right? I'd much rather be a lot more patient. Let's say if you were trying to short gold, right? Just be a little bit more patient. And as I mentioned, don't try and find a top. As for the key levels coming to market open, we can just mark out this right here. And we can also mark out now, it's going to be that all-time highs. So right now, we're going to just be kind of trading in between this range. If we do want to see some more upside, kind of bounce off the lows and push back towards the highs, or now, of course, back above our next key levels for this push back up and towards our all-time highs. So these are the key levels that we have on gold coming into market open here today. As for silver, let's mark out a couple key levels on this one. The levels that I have marked out yesterday was this level that we had to reclaim, and now we have our all-time highs here as well. So key levels for silver, As you can see, once we ended up reclaiming back above, we hit our all-time highs, and now we're kind of just trading around this general area. You can see whenever we're trading commodities like this, there's going to be a lot of fake outs, kind of a bunch of reclaims back above these key levels. So that's something to keep in mind if you are trading these. You can see nice break and retest, broke back underneath, used it as a small retest towards the downside, reclaim, and now we're most likely going to push right back up and towards the highs. As for the key levels today, mark this out, which is your all-time highs. And now we can also have marked out your 117,500. So this one, very similar thing to gold, right? Higher lows, as long as market structure stays intact, right? Just maintain a bullish stance on this one, expect it to continue towards upside. So that's what we have here for gold and silver. Now let's go back onto the game plan coming to market open. Carvana. This one actually had a pretty big drop yesterday. We had some earnings, or I'm not sure if we had earnings. We had a news report, dropped this towards the downside, kind of came back down in towards key levels, which super strong bounce right off of. Right, Carvana, just based off a technical standpoint, this is exactly the area you'd like to see hold 380. You can see buyers are actually stepping in off this previous all-time highs very nicely. So a little bit of a V-shaped recovery here so far on this ticker. You can see bounce perfectly right off that 380. And now we're having this nice mini V-shaped recovery. So 50% retracement right back up and towards our really the middle of the range from yesterday. I'll be a little bit more cautious on this ticker. Now that we are in between its previous day's range, we are most likely going to have what's called an inside bar day. So I'm not expecting too much. We'll kind of talk about this a little bit more potentially in the near future. A couple of you guys are talking about Western Digital. Forget the ticker. Is it WDC? That's what it was. So WDC, this one, really solid extension towards the upside here as well. Nice break and retest. I haven't marked out this chart in a while. Plus we had some earnings. This one, similar thesis, right? Key level is just mark out your down close candles. Now for today, what we can have marked out is going to be that previous day highs. And we can also mark out another couple key levels here as well, which is going to be that 256. So this one does have earnings in the after hours today. What you like to see is maintain above really key levels in this case, which is going to be that 284 for that continuation higher. So that's what we have on this ticker. As I mentioned, right? Do not trade anything with earnings. You want to be a little bit more cautious and you want to wait for after earnings unless you're already positioned in a very nice spot. Okay, let's go on to the game plan for today, and then I'll get ready for market open. So with the Qs right in between the previous day's range here, I'm going to be a little bit more patient right off the bat. I'm going to wait for that first kind of 15 to 30 minutes to develop in the overall markets. On the spine Qs, just because we had FOMC yesterday, we had a bunch of earnings, so I do expect a decent amount of volatility right off the bat. I don't really expect too much of a clear direction, so that's why I'm going to be waiting for a clear direction here in the markets. As for the SPY, this one, in my opinion, is bullish. So SPY, we can be looking for longs above our 696 for a push back up and towards our all-time highs and above. So I am neutral coming to market open, but I'm leaning on the higher time frames, right, more bullish on the SPY and the Qs. And of course, the SMH is bullish here as well. So we're going to be looking for, right, major dips to go long. We're going to be looking for consolidation for the market to break back above, or we're going to be looking for any sort of reclaim setup. In this case, right, SMH back above our previous day highs for this continuation back towards the upside. My main watch is coming into today. Keep an eye out on Nvidia moving forward. I'm still interested in this one. It has been lagging, but once Nvidia does break above this 193, we are going to have a nice push towards the upside. So keep an eye out on the break above our 193 for continuation. As for AMD, another one that I do like here as well, consolidation. The break above our 256, we can see this nice push back up and towards our all-time highs. So keep an eye out on the semiconductors coming to today. As for Tesla, I'm going to be hands off, so no trading Tesla until we can really break outside of its clear range. As for a few other tickers, Apple has earnings today. Be a little bit more cautious. Google, something to keep in mind here on Google above our 341 for continuation hires in play on Google. So we'll keep an eye out on this one. As for Meta, another one that we can look to trade today. But what we need, as I mentioned, is an IV flush. So if this moves higher right off the bat within the first two candles, do not look to trade this. If it dips within the first 1 to 2 candles, we can be looking for this IV flush for this pushback up and towards our 742 and above. So we'll keep an eye out on Meta. As for Amazon, not as interested. And then Microsoft, this one dropped towards the downside. So the levels that I have in the main watches, we'll keep an eye out on some of the semis. Nvidia and AMD look good on the higher time frames, at least right off the bat. We'll keep an eye out on Google and Meta, of course. As for some other tickers that we'll still keep an eye out on, MU. This one, all-time highs, continuation towards the upside is in play for a push higher. Intel looks good here as well, kind of flipping back above this 4750. And then, as of course, SNDK, this one looks good, but it does have earnings in the after hours, so you want to be a little bit more cautious. There's a couple other names that do have a bunch of earnings. So you just want to be a little bit more cautious if they do have earnings. That is something to keep in mind. But besides that, as I mentioned, we have a decent amount of setups that are forming here in the market. So keep an eye out on, as I mentioned, Nvidia, AMD, and then Google and Meta right off the bat. So that is going to be it for me today. Sorry. Hopefully you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. If you want to live trade with me every day, that is also in the description below here as well. Yeah, that's going to be it for me. I am going to get ready for market open here now, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.